You're listening to Milwaukee Mafia, your podcast dose of Wisconsin Mafia and true crime history.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Milwaukee Mafia podcast. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
And Gavin, we are back, and it sounds like you got a two-parter for us?
Yeah, that's correct?
Right. People are like, 2 parts?
Yeah.
That's a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, I'm gonna read you Jennifer Wiener's Good in Bed.
All right, Chapter 1.
Chapter 1 of Jennifer Wiener, Good in Bed.
It's funny because me and Tracy had the debate of whether that was Jennifer Wiener or Jennifer Weiner.
Well, I don't know.
I don't either. We went with Weiner.
Okay.
But you went straight to Wiener.
I went straight to Wiener. But it could be, I don't know. I don't know who she is. It could be anything.
All right, so focus now. What are we talking about today?
So this is a story that I have been a big fan of for a long time. This is Rocco Youse, and he ran a chemical company, and this is going to talk about the chemical company. Now, I did a presentation on this many years ago.
Okay.
In Menasha, and you'll see why I did it in Menasha when we get there. I had notes from that were from 2018, and I know I had done it. It was not 2018 I did the presentation. It was longer ago than that.
Okay.
But I took those notes and I expanded them even more, and I still have more stuff I'm going to add before I even put it on the website. So there's a lot of stuff.
That's the reason why this is a 2-part episode, because there's just a lot of crap to it.
There's a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And I could probably have turned it into one episode, but I mean, no way.
Yeah, I can see the pile of papers, and it's pretty extensive.
Yeah, it's a lot of paper. So yeah, this is Rocco Youse. Anything you need to know before we go dive in?
No.
Okay, we're going to tell the story. So Rocco is born Robert Youse. He's born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1925, February 3rd, 1925. His father is a polisher. Don't know what that means specifically, but he was a polisher. He was raised on a farm near Sedalia. I apologize.
Gavin's like, oh man, I got to read all these Missouri places.
Yeah,
I don't
apologize.
know what any of these are.
Already by 1930, so already by the time he's 5 years old, his father is not around, and he lives with his mother and his grandmother in St. Louis. By 1940, he moved with his mother to live with his aunt, Helen Ewert, in St. Louis. His mother worked at a local bakery. His uncle was a machine operator. Because the family lived only 2 blocks from Central High School, I would assume that Robert attended and graduated from Central High School. There are some things suggesting he graduated from Sedalia High School. I mean, it's certainly possible, but I don't know why you wouldn't go to the school you live 2 blocks from. Shortly before graduating high school, he marries Helen Marie Summers on May 16th, 1943. I'm not here to give life advice, but generally speaking, if you get married before you graduate high school, that's not a great idea.
It was, to be fair, much more common and probably a lot more likely of success back in this era than it is today.
Perhaps, yeah. So. The service was performed by a Lutheran pastor. Both parties had to have permission from their mom because they were not of age to be married. This ended in divorce a couple years later in St. Louis.
Reiterating what Gavin has said, this is not a good idea.
Yeah. The reason for the divorce was general indignities, which take that for what you want.
It doesn't sound good.
His obituary will say that he was a World War II Marine veteran. There is a record suggesting that he was discharged in December 1945. The FBI tried to find his military record and could not find it. So there is some dispute there, but I would say it's probably likely that he served a very brief stint. He graduated high school in 1943, discharged from the military in 1945. That makes sense to me that, and probably explains why they got married, is because he was probably going to get drafted into World War II the second that he graduated. So I'm guessing this is one of those deals where they were like, you're going to be gone. We better get married.
Mm-hmm.
Robert started going by Rocco when he entered local amateur Golden Gloves boxing competitions. A cousin would later claim that he was a professional for a while and made a lot of money, but the FBI checked newspapers and boxing records and could find no listing for him, which would tend to believe that he was not a very big name fighter and probably did not make a lot of money at it.
Have we gone to Milwaukee yet, or are we still
We're still in St. Louis.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yep, we're still in St. Louis, but we'll get there soon. We'll get there soon. According to his obituary, Rocco had a master's degree in psychology and minored in sociology. I found nothing to corroborate that, but there is a big enough gap in the timeline between World War II and when he shows up again that it's certainly possible that he did that. By 1950, he marries his second wife, Nancy. And from 1953 to 1958, he worked as a salesman for D&J Wilkinson Company. Don't know what that is. Doesn't really matter. This second marriage ended in divorce in 1958.
Not a good track record, either.
Shortly after that, he married his third wife. That's not the end. He was a salesman for National Chem Search Company in 1958. This was in Missouri, but by 1961, he was transferred to be a salesman in the Milwaukee area.
Ooh, wow.
October 1961, he left Chem Search to work for DL Corporation in Wauwatosa. His methods of selling were favorable to customers, so much so that it was estimated that it cost DL $27,000 within the first few months to pay for the gifts that he gave to customers.
I hope he was making significantly more than $27,000 in sales then.
Yeah. The manager did not like these methods, offering incentives like television sets and fishing tackle to make sales. He's like, that's not how we do things here. You don't tell somebody that if you buy enough from us, we'll give you a television set. It's not how this works. He was let go of DL, and he started a company called Dell on March 7th, 1962. So if listeners can't, you should be able to hear it, but if you can't, the old company is DL, the letters DL. I don't know what that stands for, but DL. The new company he forms is Dell, which is DEL.
Okay.
So all
not
he did...
not DELL, though.
Not even a second L. Not even a second L. He just threw an E in there. And what Dell means, I don't know. But that's... He formed this company in March 1962. This is in the Milwaukee area. He would soon have enough money to buy a 40-acre estate in Germantown that he called Rocco Rosa. Out front was 600 feet of wrought iron fence, designed by a local blacksmith. The estate had a swimming pool and bridle paths for horses. He also had a $1,000 per month apartment in Phoenix, and he purchased a $140,000 home in Reno, Nevada. Now, $140,000 home doesn't sound like a lot today, but in 1962, that's a significant home.
Yeah.
He also had a $40,000 duplex. So somehow he went from being a salesman that was basically giving products away to within a year or so bringing in, thousands, if not millions of dollars more than he probably should have been.
This sounds really, really suspicious to me.
It was suspicious to a lot of people.
Okay.
He liked to play golf. He played golf at the North Shore Country Club in Milwaukee. This is the first time he really gets newspaper attention. He gets a hole-in-one on the 14th hole. It was 183 yards. He gets a hole-in-one. But what was especially interesting about it is the person he played with, insurance agent Clyde Koffel, also got a hole-in-one on the same shot.
Really?
So, wow. April 1966, Dell Chemical begins construction of a $261,000 plant in Sparks, Nevada. They were expected to open in August of 66 with a staff of 22 people and would need an additional 60 salesmen if they wanted to expand into the western states. They manufactured things like snowplow wax, sewage odor control, traffic paints, and other things. Typically, when it's written up in the newspaper, it says they sell municipal chemicals, which, like, what is that? But it's pretty much anything that a city could use.
Mm-hmm.
Things that you don't generally sell to, like, just a random person. I suppose you could, but not on the volume they want to be selling things. This was a major expansion if they moved to Nevada because their headquarters was still in the Milwaukee area. Also, Sparks at this time only had about 16,000 residents. Sparks today has over 108,000 residents. From 16,000 to 108,000 in the last 50 years, Sparks really blew up. So if you've heard of Sparks today is not what it was when he moved in there. Mm-hmm. They incorporate in Nevada. He buys property so he can live in Nevada. He then creates a company called Jan Bon Incorporated, and he's the director of the company along with Joseph Balistrieri, the attorney and son of Frank Balistrieri. This is the first we hear that he knows the Balistrieris.
Okay.
Jan Bon would later become known as Premiums, Inc. This company existed solely to purchase, like, corporate novelty items, like little knickknacks with the company name on them.
Okay.
So it seems like this was done so there's like tax loopholes they could do where Dell could be like, oh, we had to buy so much premiums to give to our customers, but they're just paying themselves. I don't know exactly like how that would work, but it seems like this was a thing so they could kind of shift that around. July 1968, Rocco announces a $500,000 expansion to their Sparks facility. So they've been there a couple years and already a big expansion. But this would be used by another company he starts called Munichem, which made aerosol products. He expected to hire an additional 100 employees. Then, by 1970, another building, this time in Reno, which is nearby, but had a groundbreaking ceremony. Senator Howard Cannon, Nevada senator, shows up for the groundbreaking. It's kind of a big deal. The company claimed that sales had tripled in just the last year. 1970 sales were expected to top $7 million, which I did the numbers on this. And in today's numbers, that would be about $60 million.
Holy cow.
So this is less than 10 years. This guy went from being a salesman, like just a guy who went around and cold called people and tried to sell things, to bringing in $7 million, which is today $60 million, out of this facility. And he's got at least 3 facilities now.
My God.
So...
And now you said that the one company was also Joseph Balistrieri part owned. Do we have an idea of, like, did he serve a purpose in this company, or like why did he part own this company?
That's very odd because he's going to be the attorney for all of these companies. Why he's a director for them, I don't know. I think he's a secretary of one of them as well, but I'm not sure why. I mean, the reason would be is that makes him part owner, mm-hmm. But I don't know what happened to be like, hey, come on board and be part owner.
I just wonder if it's like in this era, would it have been more common? Like, a lawyer has always costed a lot of money.
Sure.
So I wonder if, like, as a way for business owners to get around that, they just make their lawyer a part owner of their company and they get the lawyer services for free. And just give them a portion of the profits or something like that.
I mean, that could be. That'd be a way to do it. Like, just give him, like, stock in the company.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if that was a thing back then, but it seems like it could have been, and that would be why you see that over and over
Yeah.
again.
There's pieces that are going to be missing from this story. Like, we don't know how he became close to Joseph Balestrieri, and he also will know Frank as well. How he gets to know them, how they become close. We don't really know that. There will be speculation that a lot of what this company does, and there's nothing to back this up, just to be clear.
Okay.
There's nothing to back this up. But there's speculation that, like, this business essentially existed as, like, just a way to run mob money through.
Mm-hmm.
Because the newspaper writers would be like, I don't know how this guy is suddenly, like, $1 million business owner, but he's friends with these mob guys, so maybe this is where all the mob money is going, is into this company. That's certainly possible. I have nothing to support that. So, Menasha Mayor John Klein. So now we get to the Menasha part.
Okay.
Menasha Mayor John Klein left office in January 1970, replaced by the new mayor, James Adams. The new mayor and a city bookkeeper found irregularities in Klein's ordering of chemicals from Dell. He had been mayor since 1960 and over the years ordered $18,000 of chemicals. $5,000 of that was just in the last month before he left office. The new mayor found chemicals that had been purchased in 1962 that were never used, and found $4,800 worth of chemicals that had to be thrown out because they were so old that they didn't have potency anymore. They're finding very large chemical orders for chemicals the city doesn't need.
Okay.
An investigation revealed that Klein received a 10% kickback for his orders. Dell would write him checks for 10% of the amount ordered, meaning that if he had ordered $18,000 in chemicals, he would get a check for $1,800 from Dell. This could be seen as bribery, but it was also a misuse of public funds, which is kind of the bigger problem here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know that John Klein ordered more chemicals so he would get bigger checks. We don't know that, but there's definitely that incentive for him to do that.
And on top of that, they were sitting on chemicals from years and years ago that had never been used, suggesting they probably did not need that.
Right. And like I said, to me, that's the bigger problem. If he's getting checks from the chemical company, that's not cool. But the problem here is he's ordering large amounts of chemicals using taxpayer dollars that they don't need. Mm. That's where you're going to run into problems, because people don't love to hear that the city just throws money away. We'll get back to that. A 1970 budget meeting in Hawthorne, California, held at the Cockatoo Inn, run by Andrew Lococo, had company money going to political contributions, up to $16,000 in political contributions. One of the employees that attended the meeting later said that he found this strange, but he didn't say anything until later when there was a tax trial and he was called to testify. He just was like, maybe that's how things were done. I don't know. I will point out that the Cockatoo Inn, run by Andrew Lococo is the guy who's come up on this podcast because he had the world's largest tuna boat.
Okay, that name sounded familiar.
So now Rocco somehow knows Andrew Lococo in California. How? Again, don't know. Presumably, this would have been through the Balestrieris because Joseph Balestrieri was an investor in this tuna boat. Frank was an investor in this tuna boat. Lococo also had gambling connections to guys in Milwaukee. So presumably the Cockatoo Inn was chosen at Joseph's suggestion, Michigan. Can't say that 100%, but that's the most obvious link here. April 1970, Menasha Street Superintendent Earl Kohler was speaking to the former mayor, John Klein, on the phone. In the room with Kohler was a coworker. Kohler told Klein, quote, "I'm well aware of what's going on, and I'm going to take it to the proper authorities so it can be straightened out. We've got the new employees in Menasha who have figured out why these extra chemicals exist." He calls and makes, it's not quite a threat, I guess, but he calls it and warns the former mayor, like, you're going to get found out about this. But he doesn't go to the authorities immediately, because in the middle of that phone call, while he's talking to the mayor, Kohler has a heart attack and dies.
Shut up.
So,
I mean, that's not funny, but it is ironic.
It's not funny, but it's
ironic.
It's so Kohler, the guy who just had the heart attack, his wife files a claim against the city. She claims that her husband died from work-related injuries, going off of the theory that he died having a heart attack because he was so upset during the phone call that it sparked a heart attack.
I mean, not wrong.
Right.
I don't know how far she's going to get with that, but not wrong.
Right. So during this hearing to see if the city will pay her, the coworker who was sitting there and actually heard the conversation on the phone explained what happened, and he was sympathetic. He's like he was clearly agitated. And then this now is the first time this is on the public record, where he says, yes, we had to take $4,800 of chemicals and dump them at Brighton Beach because they were no longer good anymore. We tossed 15 drums of chemicals onto Brighton Beach. Now, for people who are listening, since this is our Milwaukee podcast, not our Fox Cities podcast, you probably have no idea what Brighton Beach is.
I myself do not know what Brighton Beach is.
So Brighton Beach, it was a beach. It technically still is. It's still there. It's a little piece of land behind what today is Heckrot Wetland Preserve in Menasha. I don't know, but it literally sounds to me like these guys are taking barrels of chemicals, going to the beach and dumping them in the river. That's what it's, which this is the early 70s, entirely possible. I mean, that maybe was what they did. I don't know. Because this was a public hearing and this now got out, state authorities were notified, and they now recruited this employee. His name is Volker, Alfred Volker. And they encouraged him to start recording his conversations he had with people that knew about this.
Okay.
Rocco is expanding out west in the Sparks and Reno area. He is getting some pushback from them. Reno is kind of suspicious of his methods. Apparently rumors are going around. A Reno councilman asked for the county to look into the city's purchasing of chemicals, seeing if everything is in order. Apparently the mayor is also suspicious. May 1971, Rocco speaks out against the mayor because the mayor had said that Dell was trying to pressure Reno into giving the company preferential treatment. Rocco said the accusation, quote, is an insult to anyone's intelligence. On the contrary, we have offered in the past to give the city $10,000 worth of free chemicals, and I want to go on record again as saying the offer still stands. What profit motive could we possibly have with regard to the city? Speaking in third person, he then noted, I have even heard the rumor that Rocco Youse wants to help run the city. If Rocco Youse wanted to help run the city, he would run for public office under the democratic process instead of sitting in downtown Reno and trying to pull the strings of elected officials. I like that instead of just saying, if I wanted to, he has to say, if Rocco wanted to.
More powerful that way.
Yeah. Again, take that for what it's worth. Is he trying to influence the city into making decisions on his behalf? He says no. Why would we be doing that? We've been very charitable to you. Whereas I can certainly see when you just gave them $10,000 of free chemicals, that could be seen as you wanting something back for that. So I applaud him for trying to say, like, no, look, we just love the city. But I can understand why somebody would be suspicious when a big donation comes in. Dell purchases a Cessna aircraft for $79,000, which is a ridiculous amount of money in 1971.
What is a Cessna aircraft?
A Cessna?
Like a plane?
A Cessna, yeah. You don't know a Cessna?
No.
Okay, so a Cessna is like I think it's maybe it's a 4-person, but it's usually like a small aircraft.
Okay.
He did use it throughout the summer, but then without paying, he returned at the end of the summer and said that he couldn't continue to pay for it because it was defective, which maybe it was, but that sounds to me like he just wanted to have a plane for a couple months. By June 1971, the FBI is finally kind of poking around. They spoke to a former coworker in Wauwatosa. He said, Youse was real sharp in appealing to the basic greed of people, but that in using this tactic, he frequently became unethical in the manner in which he obtained sales orders. Youse's tactics boiled down to bribery of customers with gifts. Youse was the closest thing to an animal I've ever seen. He's loud, vulgar, he's ruthless in his dealings with people. Allegedly, Youse had to resign from the North Hills Country Club because he tried to sleep with another club member's wife, and when she turned him down, he hit her. To avoid being charged with assault, Youse purchased $100,000 of life insurance from the woman's husband, who was an insurance agent. Don't know if that's true. This is just someone's second-hand story here. But I will say I have a story that didn't make the cut for this episode, but it will be in the notes online, where this same exact thing happens later, where he is drunk at a work party and tries to sleep with one of his employees' wives. So, this is not referencing that thing, because the other thing didn't happen yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it does seem like this is a thing he does, where he gets drunk and tries to pick up his friends' wives. So, not saying it happened, but there is evidence that this is not out of character. Frank Balistrieri was at a party for the company in Reno in August 1971. Presumably, they knew each other already at this point because of Joseph and whatever else, but this is the first time we know for sure that they were at the same place together.
Okay.
So by August 1971, Rocco and Frank know each other at least well enough that Frank has flown out to Reno to attend a company party. October 7th, 1971, FBI speaks with a former Dell employee who now lived in Oregon. The employee said that Youse is a loud, vulgar, abusive type individual who treats his salesmen and other employees in a very insensitive manner. He has indicated that anyone in his organization is expendable. Dell sold chemicals to practically every city in Oregon, but legally was not supposed to sell in Oregon because Oregon law required that you have a domestic address in the state, which they did not. The chemicals at the Dell factory were purchased from DuPont, then watered down and rebranded with the Dell logo. The former employee said that Youse had commented more than once that there are 6 sets of books regarding his businesses, and he has to juggle the books on occasion to make sure the numbers come out right. Youse owned both Dell and Munichem, but was kind of quiet about this with the salesmen, and they often competed against each other for customers, not realizing they worked for the same company. The employee also believed that Munichem was created because Dell was partially owned by Rocco's wife, and Rocco wanted to be able to get out of a business with his wife if he needed to. Which, I mean, sure.
It's fair, man.
Yeah. So Rocco also now has racing horses. He's got racehorse, one named Mr. Cockatoo, and one named Rocco's Lady. And Mr. Cockatoo, even though officially owned by Rocco, is very much Andrew Lococo's horse.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if he legally can't own a horse or something, but the name Mr. Cockatoo kind of gives it away that it's owned by the guy who runs the Cockatoo Inn. Because of his gambling conviction, Andrew Lococo was not allowed in racetracks.
Okay.
He was just barred from anywhere where there could be gambling. But we know, at least on one occasion, in April 1972, when Mr. Cockatoo was racing, Lococo rented a helicopter so he could fly over the racetrack as Santa Anita and watch the race.
Okay. Hey, I guess you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
I do have a question before you go any further. So you were talking about how they were watering down the chemicals.
Yes.
So do we know, is that just something they discovered at this point in time that they were doing? Or is this like how this business has always been run?
I think this is how the business works.
Okay.
Like,
so it's not like they started out not shady and turned shady. It sounds like this was shady from the get-go.
Like, I don't know, but how the employee said it makes it sound to me like it's not a secret among the employees that this is done. There's another thing, and again, I don't think it's going to be in the notes, but it'll be online because it's a thing that I have to add. Is another employee talking, and I don't remember how he phrased it, but it was something like, check the water bill, because the water bill would be, I forget what he says, but he says it would be comparable to the water bill of some other place. And I don't remember, like a water park or something. Because of how much they're watering down chemicals. So like it's an open thing. Like the employees know this is how the business runs.
Okay.
In addition to being friends with Andrew Lococo and the Balestriers, he now has a personal bodyguard. Apparently Rocco is not well liked by some people, so he needs a personal bodyguard. He hires former boxer Annunzio Ferrero, who up to this point had been a bartender and bouncer for The Scene, one of Frank Balestrieri's clubs. So his bodyguard has now been hired from Frank Balestrieri. Mm-hmm. So another connection there. May 1972, Rocco divorces his third wife. So the employee that said that he started the second chemical company, so he had a chemical company that didn't have his wife partially owning it, whether that was the reasoning or not, less than a year after the employee saying that, Rocco does now have a third divorce, and now whatever he has to split with his wife, this new chemical company isn't under her name, so I guess he got away with that one. So we have the guy in Menasha who's been instructed to start keeping recordings. He catches a recording on December 5th, 1972, at the Menasha City Garage. What exactly he caught, I'm not sure, but it was enough that when he turned it over to the state investigators, it launched a John Doe investigation.
Okay.
So a John Doe probe was started in Oshkosh on January 18th, 1973, before Judge William Crane to investigate chemical company bribes. The probe was asked for by the governor, Called to testify were numerous people, including Paul Desjardins, who at this time was the president of Share Corporation of Brookfield, but he had previously been the vice president of sales for Dell. So, guy who would know something about something. 2 City of Menasha officials were called to testify, various other people. The John Doe probe continued for a while regarding alleged kickbacks from contractors. In addition to Dell, they were also looking into Share, this new company started by Paul Desjardins. They kind of suspected that when Desjardins left Rocco and started his own company, he was going to use the same methods as his old employer. Anunzio Ferreira, the bodyguard, testified. They testified about his racehorses. They testified about his having meetings at the Cockatoo Inn in California. They talked about Joseph Balestrieri being the attorney and the director of the company. So they're digging up a lot of information here. Some of this was already public, but they're getting a lot of people on the record about this. Another company that comes in during this is United Labs of Illinois. And United Labs of Illinois has no affiliation with these other companies. But they end up getting in some trouble for bribing a guy in Whitewater, a city official in Whitewater, Wisconsin. Apparently, 14 different times they had bribed him to buy more chemicals. And they were fined $14,000 for this. The company president, a man named Nick Saviano, acknowledged it was company policy to offer gifts to municipal employees in Wisconsin. He's like, that's how we do business. He kind of was of the opinion, like, I didn't even know that you couldn't do that.
Well, and could you not do that at this point?
You could not do that.
Okay, so this has been a long-standing law.
There was some frustration that the fine could only be $14,000 because the maximum fine for bribery was $1,000. Mm-hmm. So they caught them 14 times, so the fine was $14,000. And they're like, depending on the bribe, honestly, that's not that huge of a fine.
Penalty. Like, it's probably worth it for them just to pay the fine and keep doing it.
The FBI in May 1973 received a private investigator's report from a casino in Reno. Somebody at a casino in Reno was suspicious of Rocco and had hired a private investigator to follow him, and they turned the report over to the FBI. The report said that he went by Rocco, but his name was actually Robert. The Dell Chemical Company was in deep financial trouble. The corporation's assets were used as collateral for loans from a company out of Chicago. The report claimed officials at Dell admitted the sales to municipalities are accomplished by buying the purchasing agent, bribery. Youse spent a lot of time at the Pioneer Inn in Reno, had a $200,000 salary, as well as an additional $155,000 of company money he used for expenses. He had tabs at restaurants in Reno that were up to $1,000 a month. I don't know what food costs in the 1970s, but if you're dropping $1,000 a month at multiple restaurants, like,
that's okay, a lot of food.
A lot of food. The investigator believed that Youse was a good friend of Frank Balestrieri, but was not himself a member of the Mafia, which would be true. He would not have been. Joseph Balestrieri was asked about the reports that gifts were a key part of how Dell made their sales. He commented, quote, "Anyone who suggests that Dell Chemical is engaged in systematic breaking of a law or offering bribes to any public employee is deeply in error." And that's not true. I don't know if he knew that wasn't true, but that is not true. Milwaukee Journal story of May 9th, 1973 covered George Anderson, who had been the operator of the Whitewater sewage plant. This is one of the guys who had been bribed. Anderson pleaded guilty to receiving bribes from the chemical company United Labs of Illinois and received 100 days in jail for it.
Weird.
So The company gets fined $14,000. The guy accepting the bribes gets 100 days in jail. Sounds like he got the worst end of that. He explained that he did not know that accepting gifts from salesmen was wrong. He was given merchandise and 14 U.S. savings bonds. Quote, I was the one who was stupid enough to take the stuff. I'm the one who has to pay the price. Other people who had testified at the Oshkosh John Doe told the newspaper they were confused, and many of them didn't think that what they were doing was bribery or accepting bribes because the values were so low. The Attorney General, Robert Warren, who we've mentioned many times on this podcast, he explained, quote, no distinction should be drawn between receiving a $25 kickback or a $2,500 kickback. Each such instance is not only against the laws of the state, but also has a shattering effect on the public's trust of its public servants. So, according to the law, whether you get a $25 gift or a big bribe, the law is the same. It's not legal. And again, his point here, which I think he's right, it has a shattering effect on the public trust of public servants. It does, because if you know or you suspect that people in government office are making decisions based on gifts they receive and not on good public policy, that's not great. So, yeah.
And didn't you mention just a little while ago, like, the gifts that the guy from Whitewater got? And it sounded like it was just like a bunch of T-shirts and some, I think you just said like merchandise.
Yeah, a lot of it's really, there's a whole wide range, but it seems like a lot of the time it's relatively minor things. It's like fishing poles and stuff. It's nothing that would really.
So this guy's making millions selling chemicals, and really the things that he's bribing people with are probably pretty insignificant.
For the most part.
And that's crazy.
I mean, the mayor of Menasha was kind of an outlier, getting that actual 10% back based on the purchases. That I don't think you can argue is not
kosher at all.
Like, there's clearly, like, that's not great. But yeah, like, if you do regular business with the company and they give you, like, a promo item, that's, I don't think, generally seen as bribery. So I can see why this is a very gray area and why some of the people didn't think it was wrong.
I mean, I was expecting everybody to have the kind of deal that the Menasha guy had. And it seems like, no, that's not a lot of what they're doing. That was an extreme example.
That was more of an extreme case. Yeah. Milwaukee Journal ran a story on Rocco on May 13th, 1973. They said he liked to gamble with $100 chips at the Riverside Casino in Reno and was known to win or lose as much as $25,000 in a single night playing blackjack. The head of security said that Rocco always carried a .38 pistol and liked to wave it around while gambling. After drinking, he would get belligerent and tell staff to F themselves. Did not say F. Which had gotten him ejected from the casino once or twice. Other Dell employees spoke of Rocco's love of guns, including a coworker named Ruster. His name is Clyde, but he went by Ruster, who helped Rocco move in 1966. One heavy box was loaded up with 45 automatics in shoulder holsters. Ruster also claimed that he shipped slot machines from Reno to Milwaukee in 55-gallon drums. The paper said that Rocco flies in a $150,000 private plane, owns multiple Cadillacs and Rolls Royces. They estimated his annual sales at $17 million. They had wanted to interview Rocco himself for the paper, but attorney Joseph Balestrieri turned them away. When asked about the ongoing investigation of the bribes, Balestrieri said, quote, "It has never been the company policy to bribe anyone, be it a public employee or the purchasing agent for a private corporation. There was no need for an investigation. If anyone had any quarrels with the Dell premium policies, all they had to do was say, 'Stop it.' and it would have been stopped.
And that's Joseph Balistrieri?
That's Joe saying it, yeah.
I figured. I think you just said Balistrieri, but I figured that can't be Frank.
No, that's Joe acting as company attorney. So that's about the halfway point of the note. So I'll pause it there. What do you want to know before we?
I mean, I think
take our
that
break?
So far I'm pretty interested in the fact that because I mean, okay, there's definitely like his sales tactics are a little shady, but for the most part, it seems like this company seems to be above board. I guess not really, because they're also watering down the chemicals like crazy.
There's a lot of things going on here, and I suspect that if there was more information, we'd find even more out. Now, what I have the FBI files. I have the newspaper reports, which cover quite a bit because, I mean, a lot of this went to trial, so it covers quite a bit. I have the Wisconsin State Investigators reports, which go into more detail than the FBI, actually. Like, they were really thorough. But I still suspect there's more. Like, I don't know what law enforcement in Reno was doing, for example. So there may be more stuff that they've uncovered that I don't know about. But we get enough hints of things where I feel like if we just had the right person or the right piece of information, we would see just how shady some of this
this
is.
was, yeah.
Yeah. Because there's clearly things that don't add up. On top of the fact that it sounds like nobody who works for this company likes the boss. Like nobody ever is like, yeah, Rocco's the sweetest guy. I love that. I love working for him. No, everybody they talk to is like, this guy's an ass. So he's not making friends. And the friends he does make are all people that we've run into on this podcast before that, you know, if you're an honest businessman, you don't really want
to be associated with these people. So now, and you talked about, and this might be a better question for the end of the next episode, but you talked about how there was speculation that that maybe this whole business was a front for running through. Do you have any feelings on that? Like, I think you said that there's absolutely no evidence to suggest that. But is there anything you've ever encountered that kind of makes you think, well, maybe it was? Or is it more or less like this seems like a Joe Balistrieri being a lawyer thing and just gets pulled into the mafia more closely?
As you know, I generally don't like going along with the theory without some strong evidence to back it up. Mm-hmm. I'm not completely opposed to this one. Now, okay. I would still lean that this is probably not one of those situations, but it makes sense. It definitely makes sense because the money that he had, like, now, even if we accept that the company was wildly successful from day one and that's how he gets all this money, even if we accept that, I still have to wonder where he gets all the startup money, you know, because he's coming out of, like, not that a salesman makes bad money, but they don't generally make enough where they can suddenly open a business that's like competing on the level that like established businesses that are doing business statewide or region-wide are doing. Like, it's very odd to me that he just like starts it and within a couple months he's like the biggest guy in the state.
Right. And but then, you know, like you said, maybe some Joe Balistrieri money went into that. He does have a lot of connections with a lot of people that have money. Yeah. Which makes me think that, well, maybe he could do it then.
Yeah.
You know.
But that's what I'm saying. So was it used as a way to funnel money through? I don't know about that. Was there money invested in the company?
Probably.
I would certainly be open to that.
Yeah. Okay, and I can go along with that, but I don't know. I have like this line where you there's a big difference between the mob investing money into you, and then there's a difference of you like cleaning the mob's money.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very
There's a
different
huge
things.
difference between those two things,
Yeah.
and getting mob investment to me is not nearly as. I mean, I think some people would heavily disagree with me on this, but that's not nearly as awful as fun, cleaning their money for them. In my opinion.
I mean, there's nothing illegal about having investors with a criminal history. Like, that's not illegal. It doesn't always look good to have your board of directors
have mafia members.
Yeah, that doesn't look great, but it's nothing illegal about it. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything really bad about that. And I would generally agree. Like that's where, like, to me, it makes sense that there could be an influx of money because they're investors in the company. I'm not all convinced that they were using it as a way to, like, take the money and clean it. Other than the fact they're investing money, like, I guess that is taking dirty money and putting it somewhere.
Yeah, that is very true.
But beyond that, because that's the thing that we've talked about this, the reason that the mob, and not just Milwaukee, but the mob in general, loves things like bars, restaurants, vending, everything else, is they're cash-heavy businesses. And if you want to turn dirty cash into clean cash, a cash business is the way to do it. because nobody, I don't care how good of a businessman you are, how honest of a businessman you are, your books are bad. Like, I don't think that this is like, I don't think anyone's going to be listening to this and be like, what? Like, if you've ever worked at a bar or a restaurant, if you can honestly say to me that you've claimed 100% of the money that went through that day, I'm going to call you a liar. Because that is not how those businesses work.
Well, and just because they handle a lot of cash, they can easily just throw an extra $500,000 on that they didn't actually make,
right,
onto cash and clean it that way. So
right,
it makes
exactly.
it a really easy way to clean cash, too.
Right. But yeah, I mean, come on. If you've ever worked as a bartender or wait staff and you receive tips, you're not claiming those. Come on.
I'm sure that they all do.
Somebody out there probably does, but that person is a fool because nobody else is doing it.
All right, so you want to give us a little bit of what's to come in part 2, then?
Well, up to this point, Rocco hasn't really gotten in trouble, so we're going to see how this shifts from all these suspicions into him actually kind of becoming the focus. And there's going to be another big mob name that hasn't come up yet. Milwaukee Mafia name that hasn't come up yet that's going to get introduced, and really, to me, bizarrely introduced. Like, why is he involved in this? So,
interesting. I'm curious.
Yeah.
So, all right, then with that, if you don't got anything else, we can wrap this episode up. We will be back next week with the Patreon, but then we will be back in 2 weeks with the conclusion of this episode. Gavin, where can people reach out to you at? Yeah, people can, first of all, go to MilwaukeeMafia.com, where you can see all the show notes and the beautiful wiki. I mean, like, it's massive amounts of material on there. But you can contact me directly, MilwaukeeMafia@gmail.com. We did actually get a couple questions for mailbag in the last week, so we'll be doing that soon. So, yeah, if you got questions, I'll answer you directly to the email. But if it's a question we can use, I'll also use it on the Patreon. And I won't, if it's something you don't want to be affiliated with, I'm not going to call you out. So don't be afraid to ask, questions that you don't want to be identified with, because I'm not going to be giving out your name and address. There is no bad questions out there.
There is no bad question.
If you're having the question, you might think you're dumb.
Yeah.
But I promise you 10 other people that listen to this podcast
you're not dumb. And
has the same question.
I really like the 2 questions that were sent. So,
super. Yeah. So we will have those coming up very soon, I'm sure.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, then with that, we'll wrap this episode up. Gavin did not mention we do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/Milwaukee Mafia. You can learn about that. And we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Milwaukee Mafia podcast. Join us next time for another look back at Wisconsin Mafia and true crime history.